For a good resident, we like to have somebody that's going to keep a clean, safe, and sanitary apartment. So the condition of the unit is going to be held safe. And then we give out a set of paperwork, and it all looks so intimidating. Nobody's going to read it. So we like to tell them what's important and what's
How
not
many
important.
pages?
Oh gosh, our handbook's 17 pages.
Okay.
Nobody's going to go through and read it. So we just tell them kind of what's important in there versus what. I mean, some of it's really good knowledge, but not knowledge that you're going to need to live. It's more knowledge on what to expect of you and what to expect of management. But for a tenant, somebody that's going to pay their rent on time, somebody that's going to communicate with management, communicate with maintenance, if they have any issues. Let's say their radiator's broken. A lot of times maintenance is going to walk in, but they can't fix anything in the apartment because there's so much stuff in front of it.
Oh.
Or we'll have tenants over like hovering or watching, and so we like to have a little bit more. But we really need people to follow the rules and regulations at the property. And a lot of times when we have somebody that's homeless and been homeless for multiple years, they have all these great advocates and people that say that they're going to do great, but they get there and they don't do great because they're allowing so many people to come in and take advantage of them. And they don't know that they're being taken advantage of. They're being helpful, but they're not being helpful to themselves or to the Guardian apartments. Mm-hmm. And then
give us an example.
Well, I'd say I've had a few recent experiences with it, but we had a tenant that was on the 4th floor, and he constantly had very bad traffic. Traffic such as guests that are in the elevators and they're drunk and they're touching other tenants, making them uncomfortable, or screaming and yelling in the hallways at 2 a.m. And we've had, these people, they're going to come and sleep in their apartment, but as soon as they don't, let's say, I don't want you in my apartment anymore. Well, now this guest is sleeping in our lobby, and we have to tell them to leave. But they're not going to leave because they're so-and-so's guests. So we just have all these issues of extra traffic from people that aren't even trying to do anything different with their lives, versus that person who did get the place, who did take the steps to get an apartment. Now they're being taken advantage of, and they're going to be under eviction because they're not.
And what's your real rule about guests?
It's a 14-day guest period, so you have 14 days to have somebody come stay with you consecutively. And after...
How many somebody's?
What's that?
How many somebody's can stay for 14 days?
Well, it says for one.
Okay.
One person for 14 consecutive days. If that person is there for more than 14 consecutive days, they're considered a part of your lease, somebody that's living in your household that's not on the lease agreement. So now you're going to start receiving infractions or taking steps towards adding this household member to your household. You can only have 2 heartbeats per household, though, at the Guardian. Other places is different because they're family properties. We only have 1 bedrooms and studios, so you can only have a family of 2 heartbeats. That'd be 2 people. Animals don't include in that. Yeah. But yeah, I feel like there's a lot that goes into being a good tenant.
Can you name 2 or 3 primary reasons why folks may lose their lease?
Smoking in the apartment.
Smoking, okay.
Yeah, it's a non-smoking property, and I don't know why.
One of the things that is difficult, and with folks coming off the street, substance use disorder is
very bad.
Is real, right? Yeah. I found a way for me to deal with that. My way is not the way everyone's going to go about it. I am completely open to harm reduction, right? But smoking is smoking. I don't care what you're smoking.
Yeah.
You can't smoke it in your apartment. There's things that are completely legal for you to do. Cigarettes are legal. Marijuana is legal. All those things are legal, and you are welcome to do them in legal areas. Your apartment isn't one of them.
Yep.
I think the other one that we see a lot is and it's interesting. We have people make that transition very successfully, right? But even so, with some of the people who come off the street and they're living on their own now, taking out the trash, if you've been living on the street for a year or 2 or 5 or 10, may not have been a big priority. But if I walk into your apartment because your toilet's backed up,
You have
and I have to run for the Vicks Vapor Rub so I can breathe,
yeah.
or I lose my lunch, we're going to have an issue because it's literally unsafe and unsanitary. Then that's a hard skill set for people to pick up on. That now that we have a house, we have to do the dishes once a week, take the trash out once a week. Picking a day. A lot of my life revolves around having days to do things, laundry. A laundry day, and it seems like it's a basic skill that we would all have, but a lot of people don't, right? And you can't be too. And it's difficult. It's hard to walk into an apartment and say, "This smells horrible. You need to take a shower, and you need to do your laundry, and you need to do your dishes." And just as a human being, that's an uncomfortable discussion to have, right?
So I'm hearing smoking, unsanitary conditions. Would there be a third thing that might lead to
What do you think?
I would say just the common respect for people. If you're outside and you're living outside and you're not aware of like the noise that you make, and then going into an apartment setting, being respectful of what quiet hours are and maintaining that so that you're not disrespecting your neighbors or people above you or below you, is a noise complaint that we get a lot of, is what I would say.
Yeah, a lot of noise complaints.
Those are all, I'm assuming that there's trash, of course, but hoarding, is that a problem?
Yeah, very big problem.
Yeah.
So that was probably one of our most recent. He was going to be an eviction. He decided he was going to move out instead. So he moved out on his own terms. But the amount of items it actually saddened us extremely, because most of it wasn't even anything of value, and he couldn't fit half of it in his truck. But he was just loading stuff, and you could just see he was like broken inside to leave all that stuff. But like none of it was of value, but it was all important to him. It was just hoarding is a very, very, very sad thing to come across. And you can talk about it, and you can tell them to reduce it, and they'll reduce it for a while, but then they start to collect again.
Do you what's your policy on like room visits or guest?
We're not anal.
Process.
I mean, like
you're not supportive housing, so you don't.
Right.
You don't.
We're not going to monitor
Right.
you. You can live like a regular human being in your own apartment. You can drink in your own apartment. You could have your boyfriend come over to your apartment, your girlfriend, your mom, your family members, nieces, nephews, stuff like that. We're not going to be like, oh, who's this at this time? And you know what I mean? That would be a lot of we're not the hall monitor. But if you have somebody that's coming in, they're disrupting everybody, and we have tenants now coming in and complaining about your guest. Of course, we're going to be like, well, what's going on with this? Can you talk to this person? Because your guest has to follow the same rules that you have to follow at your place.
So it has to be kind of a provoked situation.
Yeah, that's the only time that we would
situation.
say something like the person that was in the elevator drunk and touching somebody else.
Sure. Sure. Okay. How in the series of things? What about non-payment of rent? Is that obviously a high or because?
So that one is like for evictions on that, it's 30 days.
Okay.
We can only do a 30-day, unless you're a repeat offender. Then it's a 5-day for repeat. But it's after 2 months of non-payment. You could potentially post a 30-day. Most of the time, I call the emergency contact. I'm like, hey, so-and-so's not paying their rent. Don't know what's going on. Could you talk to them about it? Because a lot of times they do have people out there that's helping them, like Center of Mental Health. Or no, the payee. If you have a payee, you're never going to miss your rent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
You're never going to miss your rent. Your payee's going to pay your rent directly to us. We love payees.
Mm-hmm.
We do. It's the easiest way to keep track of somebody's making
And
sure
also,
they're
we
being
should
paid.
mention your clients are folks with disabilities and senior adults. Is that right?
Yep. 62 years of age or older is a senior, or 62 years of age or younger with a disability. Yeah. And that could be mental or physical.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I see is sometimes people get in the building and it's just a level of care, right? I will call him Jay. Jay lived in our building. He was taken advantage of every month.
Financially, or
Financially, his substance use disorder was out of control. He was down where he weighed 130 pounds. He was getting problems with the police. He was having issues, mental issues. His mental health was getting really flaky. He left before he got evicted, which was great because an eviction from the guardian is really hard on you for future housing. That's really a key factor here. If you're getting subsidies and you get evicted, it's horrible for your future, right? I always believe someone can bounce back. And that's a big portion of my core value system is that everyone out there can make it. I don't always know how, but I believe that it's possible, right? And this guy, I mean, he went through a treatment program, and he is now in a halfway house. Has been there for a year. Has money in the bank. I saw him this weekend. He rode his bike by and rode up, and he's like, "Hey!" And I was like, "Whoa!" He's healthy. He's all excited. He's going to go on a trip. It's the first time he's been on a plane in 30 years, and he's going to fly down and see his sister in California. But that extra level of support, and we've had people in with mental health issues who, again, the streets are hard on people, and people do get used, and that first of the month paycheck can end up getting used for the wrong substances. Sure. They get off track, and then they're out on the street, and then we have a mental health episode. We have someone who's.
So would you say a dimension of this could be teaching people self-care? Would that be?
I think self-care and awareness, if you're working with someone, if they have a substance use disorder problem, if they have a mental health problem, to be very aware of that situation and their contact for that situation. So if someone says, yes, I'm working with the Center of Mental Health and I'm working with Dr. So-and-so, saying, if you don't mind, let's get Dr. So-and-so's number and give that to me. And with your permission, if you get if I'm concerned about you, I'm going to call. Is that okay?
Well, and that's like staying on meds and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, it's really, that kind of stuff is really, I see that as one that has caused a lot of harm to people. It's not good when the maintenance man has to go to his apartment and cries for half an hour.
So
it's
you're
not
like
good.
me. You have to go home at night and say, "I'm not a case manager. I'm
not a case manager. I'm not a case manager. I'm not a case manager." And I'm really fortunate. I've got some resources in the community that I do know.
That's your mantra, Jeff.
And I can reach out to them. But yeah, that's it's a real thing, and I think that's one of the things where right now we've got a solid.
I'm not a case manager.
Our tenants are doing good.
We have actually 118 filled units right now.
Well, we're down one.
Introduce yourself to the group, and then we'll ask you a few questions. About
my name is
success.
Mark Ney. I'm a community health worker for St. Peter's Health for the FUSE team, which stands for Frequent Users of Systems Engagement. Prior to that, I spent 2 years as the Street Outreach Coordinator for Good Samaritan Ministries, working with our unsheltered population in town and trying to direct them into community, direct them into resources, direct them in hopefully in the perfect world, into housing. I think number one, when it comes to housing type of questions, these are your experts, right? These are your experts. They're the landlords. They know the laws. But kind of one of the thoughts that I have, and particularly when we're talking about somebody who, and this isn't everybody, but I think our targeted population is those that live on the streets. All of a sudden, they're in a home, right? And one of the things that commonly happens, I think, is somebody's had a long adventure on the road. You know, living on the streets, that's really hard. It's a different world out there. All of a sudden, they did some things and they have keys in their hand, right? And so they get in their apartment complex, and all of a sudden, like, they shut the door and they're kind of divided from the world that's out there, and they go, well, this is my place. And in a sense, yes, we want people to feel like that is their home. But the reality is, particularly if you purchase your home, you can do what you want in your home, but these are agreements. This is an agreement between a property and a person. So it is your home to a point. And so I think it's super valuable, particularly as volunteers that are walking into a place, is what are the things in the agreement that does not make it your place? It is, you don't have a free-for-all. And I think that's one of the big misconceptions in folks coming in off the streets. It's my home, I can do what I want. No, you cannot. And so it's very important to be able to communicate. These are the things that are okay. We want you to set it up, and we want you to be able to have a friend over. In a sense, yes, you can have a boyfriend, you can have a girlfriend, but this is the Guardians. It's their building. It is their building. It is Helena Housing's building. And so to be able to really kind of direct that thought that it's not your home. It's your home, but it's not. So I think that's an important deal. Because that can kind of stop the free-for-all. I can do what I want because it's my home, and I can shut the door. You know that's not the case. You know that's not the case. I know that's not the case. They might not know that that's not the case.
So would it be helpful to, I'm not saying let's read the 17 pages together.
Correct.
But maybe ask the person early on, do you have any questions about the general contract? You know,
Oh, we do.
understand
Yeah.
the-
They're very,
We
very,
do.
very, very, very thorough with, because I've sat down in the,
Because I assume you do that.
Yes.
Well, I think
when
what
you have a
happens
new
is
resident,
You
right?
go
What does that
through
look
so
like?
much information.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear you say another word.
It's overwhelming.
They
they're
want to
excited
sign
get
that
keys.
paper
They just
and
want
get their
the
keys.
Yeah.
And then you could tell them later on, hey, why are you doing this? And they'll be like, oh, well, you never told me that. Okay, well, I did when I moved you in.
Right.
and so one of the questions, maybe if we have a volunteer and we got somebody move in and we're going in on the first or second day, hey, what is your understanding of what is okay in this place? What is your understanding of what is against the rules in this place? And maybe that can open up some conversation,
Sure.
right?
Just establish some boundaries.
Yeah,
really.
hey, let's, where are we
Smart
at?
game.
You went
Yeah.
through a lot yesterday. What is what's
What's your
not
take?
okay?
Yeah.
You know, what can you not do in here?
One of the things I think is a classic, right? We
was
welcome
like that.
people to put a poster up or a painting up or a
Uh-huh.
picture or family photographs. I mean, hello, it's your apartment.
Right.
We would prefer that you not use 9-inch Lagger bolts,
Right.
which literally people have done. You know, I want to put this picture up. The only thing I've got is this railroad spike. Whang! Into the wall it goes. We have a thing about window coverings, and they're horrible. I live there. I know this. Right? I have a street lamp
You mean
outside
like
my
the
house.
Existing, are there
They're
existing
blinds. You
or-
get blinds when you move in,
Sure.
and our blinds are just—they're. If you want to block light out, they're terrible. There's a street lamp. I would not be able to sleep. I would get no
Like
sleep.
looking out this window right
Okay.
Just full on. And the bulb is like right there.
here.
So I have curtains, right? But if you're going to put up curtains, we ask you come to the maintenance guys. I have a box of picture hanger equipment,
Oh, sure.
like everything from 20-pound to 50-pound artwork. I can hang any kind of art you want up. I've got molly bolts and everything you need to hang up curtains and anchors and everything. I would prefer that I do that because I know where everything in the wall is and they'll be up forever and secure. And then when you move out, I'll know how to get them out.
Sure, with the least damage.
Yeah, with the least amount of damage, and we would welcome that. But just let me know. I've put up curtains and shelves and
Shower heads.
shower heads,
when
and
they want to switch out the
then they
showers.
want to have a wand thing.
Yep.
I would rather come in and put 3 cents worth of tape on that thing so it doesn't leak all over the bathroom and spray your neighbor downstairs and have them
So
complain
this
there's
all
water
comes
coming out of
back
the
to,
ceiling.
if I could, what Mark is describing,
Yeah.
living on the street, how much respect is there for the street around?
Right.
Well, none. But now they're in an apartment, then essentially they have to learn to respect the property that they're in.
Correct.
And that comes back to your comments about trash and remembering to take the trash out and
Do the
There
dishes.
are
Putting
rules,
holes in the
there
wall.
are laws.
So
Yes.
talk a little bit about how hard is that transition to learn that level of respect?
It depends on the individual, and obviously, we have some very complex individuals with very complex needs and require different levels of communication, right? And so I think what's important in this project is really doing the best that we can to foster a relationship between the volunteer and the person living in the streets. And what we would really like, I think, is to have a level of communication where our volunteers have a relationship with the landlords. And we've developed such a relationship with the tenant that the tenant can have a relationship with their landlord.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, our tenants avoid their landlords, and it shouldn't have to be that.
Right.
And I don't think that it's anything to do with these guys. I think it's just an ability
They're approachable.
Yeah, very approachable. And so how do we open up approaches? And so if we can kind of build that, that's great. But I think also as a volunteer is understanding, because of the complexity of certain individuals, is understanding that maybe what needs to be done is to express to the landlord and maybe express to whether it's you or somebody else, hey, this person might need some extra help. And how do we refer them into an agency? Because a big part of my job is the intervention of when I do have house clients, is the intervention and keeping them from getting evicted and keeping a relationship between that tenant and the landlord. And not all people in the units have those, and some really need it. And so I think that's an important thing is as
So
we
just being an advocate is
yeah. So it's really being open and expressive, and I know that the landlords are very busy, but they also want to protect their property. And guess what? They do care about the people that are living in their unit, and they would like to see them stay housed. That's best for business.
Yeah.
It really is. It costs money to cycle people in and out, I'm guessing, and it costs money to do the paperwork, I'm guessing. So the perfect scenario is we have a renter.
Yeah.
And they have enough support, and there's enough communication between us to bridge gaps.
So Mark or Mariah or your team, recognizing they might need some extra help,
Where do you point that?
how do you point?
Okay, so where do you point?
Where do you
Right.
point?
And that's a tough conversation because it's a lot of needs. But I know that as far as with Fuse, even if they're not a Fuse client, and there is a question, and there's a need for an intervention, is you can call me, and if I'm available or Colette's available, we're very free to go and step into an apartment complex. We had, for example, last week we had Emmy Anderson that has 2 hoarding situations, and these folks are on the verge of eviction, and so they reached out to Fuse and said, can you send somebody over and assess the situation? Now, we didn't take them on our caseloads, but what we did is we assessed the situation, talked to the tenants, and are working towards getting a cleaner in there, and that's probably not going to fix everything. But if that can stop something, and that allows perhaps more help to kind of sink its teeth in, that's a better scenario, because we do want help for the people.
Can you tell me more about what Fuse does? I'm not familiar with Fuse. I mean, what would you maybe
Sure.
be able to help with?
It you know, and again, because each situation is unique, it's tough to say unless I was in the situation. But part of my job is understanding who in the community does what, and so I can at least step in there and go, well, maybe this is best, maybe this is best. Let me make a call. Let me bring somebody else in.
Maybe
Or-
it's mental health
Yeah,
services,
yeah.
maybe it's addiction services.
Oh, okay. So
And FUSE, by the way, stands for Frequent Users of Systems Engagement. Their goal is to try to divert folks who are using the emergency room as a warming center or the detention center as a warming center.
And are at
divert
risk
them
of
from
either houselessness or risk of losing housing, and so that's our kind of our primary population. And some of it might just be you as the volunteer. Boy, I don't know what questions to ask, and I don't quite know how to handle this situation, and so calling me is I'll come in and I'll generally know what questions I need to ask of the person to see where they're getting help in the community, or see where they're not getting help in the community, or have a better idea of what sort of intervention needs to take place.
And
Is
as
it
you
always
get to
successful?
know clients,
No.
you may learn that they have a mental health history, or they have a relationship with AWARE or Many Rivers Whole Health or the BHU or whatever. Or you may learn, okay, they struggle with addictions and they may have other relationships. So sometimes it's reconnecting. Often, I would say it's reconnecting with services. But yeah, there would certainly be help available if. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, so I don't know if you've given thought to this yet, but how much will we know about the person? Obviously, you're not going to tell us about all their addictions and everything, but how are we going to know how
I
long
would say
they've been
very
unhoused?
general background,
Yeah.
and you're going to know that they're new to housing, relatively new to housing. Or if it's someone who has a history of evictions, we could probably share something about that. So, but yeah, we can.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Have you guys put any thought into when you house or one of the clients is accepted to housing, having the volunteer go with them to sit in on the move-in or the pre-move-in to help them
The initial
understand,
conversation.
to help them
Good idea.
understand like the
Yeah.
rules and regulations and what's expected of them as a tenant going into new housing that they haven't been in,
Yeah,
so
that's
that
a
they
great
have
idea.
maybe a better understanding of what, and so that the volunteer understands what that person's getting into. So if they have questions, they can reach out to their volunteer and say, hey, I need a little bit more explanation, or I didn't really understand this.
And your facility has its disabilities or
Correct. So
older,
like
so
we,
you're going to get mental health. And
right,
people
so
are
we do a
confused.
pre-move-in appointment and then a move-in appointment on the day that they actually move in, and we go over a lot of the same paperwork at both appointments. And so they have numerous opportunities, but somebody who hasn't been in housing and they come in and they're doing, like she said, we have a ton of paperwork that we go through with them. And a lot of it's residual for us because we do it every single day. But somebody who hasn't been in a situation, who doesn't have the paperwork or maybe the knowledge of what any of it even means, if they have somebody, a volunteer coming in with them when they do this paperwork and are signing these contracts, that have a better understanding of maybe being able on a one-on-one basis without the managers or whatever sitting there explaining it to them, so that they're more aware of what it is that we're expecting.
And a lot of times they don't really care what they're signing.
Right. They
They're
just
signing.
want to be in.
We have people like
Give me the keys.
Matt
Yeah, give me
that
the
will be like, so what am I signing? Do you know what I'm signing? And he'll go through and read the entire thing before he signs it, which is how it's supposed to be. Yes, it's irritating to us, but most of the time they don't do
You're
that.
supposed to just
They're
sign
going to
this.
be like, all right, give it here, and it's going through one ear and not the other.
This is I'm committing a felony. Yeah, no. I think the other thing is really important with all these people is, and what I've noticed is, most of them are more than willing to share pretty openly about where they're coming from. they will tell you.
Yeah.
They will tell you how they got there. It might be a little
There's
Right.
some details
the way
missing.
some details missing,
And you're getting their perspective.
and you're getting
Yeah.
their perspective on things.
Yes.
But they generally speaking, they'll share. And
You have enough.
I can say that Mark and I informally, right? There have been situations where I've called Mark and said, we've had to evict somebody.
Do you want to check on them?
If you'd be so kind, here's their name. They're going to be on the street. Red alert, right? And he'll say, all right, I'll put the word out. We've discussed folks and how we can best help them that are housed with us. Sometimes it's been successful, and sometimes it's not. And I think that's the back to the maintenance guy crying in his apartment. There are times when you're not going to be able to.
Save somebody.
You're just not. And
There's going to be successes.
and there's been successes and failures. The successes are really sweet.
Yeah.
We've got one guy that, and communication style, all right. It is an effed up, blah 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 blah, beep bleep 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 situation, and you're all a bunch of bleeping blipping blipping bleeping blipping blipping, right? And he responds in panic mode anytime anything goes wrong, and he yells at you, right? But his ability to live in the building, he's quit having people over. He continues to use alcohol to excess, but it isn't impacting his neighbors. It isn't impacting the building. He isn't doing it out on the front lawn. The end of the day, much happier that he has a roof over his head than on the street, because he's at an age and a health situation where it would kill him. We've got another guy that's doing really well, and that's because he's developed relationships in the building who are helping him to act a little more humanly, behave himself a little bit better. So yeah, it's awesome, but there's people who will, I don't want to bother you, my toilet's overflowing. How long has it been overflowing? 4 days. Okay.
Was that today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so when it backed up Friday, what was Friday? I'm like, I know. But I'm here, and it's okay. You know, you can come talk to me on a Friday. If your toilet's overflowing, it's okay to knock on my door.
Well, and that's the value of that relationship we were talking about.
Right.
You're accessible, you're approachable, and better sooner than later.
But even if you are, what I'm saying is, even if you are, you put it out there to them all the time. Some people are incapable. They live in so much fear.
Yeah.
They have
Or
so much
trauma.
fear or trauma.
Past trauma.
Right? Last time I told them there's something wrong with my apartment, I got kicked out. And that's going to happen again if I tell them that that's my fault, the toilet isn't working.
Oh, sometimes I give. There was one time I gave a late notice to somebody, late payment of rent. And they just packed their stuff and left. And then I had caseworkers calling me like, "What?
What?
So you just evicted?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I didn't evict this person." And they're like, "Okay, I'll have a conversation with them." You know what I mean? Because evictions aren't like as easy as it sounds.
Right.
It's a long process.
And residents have rights too, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, they have rights.
Yeah.
And we could spend some time on that. We've got about 10 minutes left. Do you all have any questions for them that I'm not thinking of? I'm trying to.
It
Think of
basically
everything.
sounds like what these people are lacking most of the time are case managers. Like your building could use 3. And
I'd probably find one
at least 3 would be a little.
2 for how about 2
impactful.
for each floor?
LAC maybe or 10.
Yeah, some peer support people, an LAC, a mental health advocate.
Because it's
Right.
special needs type of people and elders.
And we have
And it's
more
independent
buildings like
living.
that in
Yeah, and we're not the only one.
Sure.
We do, but the reality is we're not in that stage in Helena, Montana, where we have those things, and so again, I think a very valuable part of this is it's awesome that we're looking to engage in this way, but it's also very appropriate for volunteers to go, hey, I think we need, a code red here.
You can send
Code red.
Yeah.
You know what? This is beyond my scope. This is beyond my expertise. In my conversation, this person really feels lost, and to know how to reach out to let the community agencies the best they can intervene. Because the last thing that I want to see, not just for the person, but because of the complexities of it, is to see another human being on the streets. Because if you hit the streets right now, it's a long road off of them. And so, just as important as getting our unsheltered housed is keeping people housed. It's keeping people housed is like that is a huge piece of the success of our community right now, because we can't afford to have anybody else hit the streets. There's just not quick places to go. So if we can keep them indoors, that's our best option.
Any other thoughts, questions? Because I can keep firing away. My first experience with the Guardian was a fella coming into the shower program on Tuesday morning, and he just said, "I'm getting too old for this." and he was. He's 60 plus. I'm not remembering his name right now, but
I bet you I know who it is.
Anyway, maybe it was Al, and he was there for a while, but he was unsuccessful because he had too many guests.
Too many
He was
infractions.
generous, with his apartment.
Yeah, which the very first person that I ever housed in street outreach was housed at the Guardian, and there wasn't, and I had many opportunities to intervene, and what I love about my relationship with staff at the Guardian is they will call me and be like, hey, can you intervene? This is what we're getting to. And through many interventions, just could not stop.
I was gonna say, I think we had like 4 or 5.
Yeah, very generous, you know what I mean? But there just came a point where, we're not gonna win them all, and that's the reality. So
Can't be your full-time job.
yeah, but yeah, it was so that was tough to see, but I was grateful for the opportunity,
Maybe describe. I'm sure you've seen folks that you think to yourself, they're not going to make it, but they've been successful.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
you can't read a person.
Can you describe what that looks like?
So there's somebody that's going to
a
come in.
successful journey.
Yeah, there's somebody that's going to come in, and they fully qualify. They have no evictions, they have no felonies, but you're like, oh my god, I don't want to rent to this person. This is going to suck. And then it doesn't. Or they come in and they do suck. Or they come in and they have felonies, and so you have to deny them. But they appeal, and they're going to be approved, and they're the best tenant you have on the property. Or there's somebody that you're like, it's going to suck. They're great. Oh, this person's awesome. They interview so well. And then they're not who they said they were.
Awful. Yeah.
They're absolutely not. And I've had that with even maintenance men before. I had this one guy come in, and no, not this one. I like this one. But, I had this one guy come in, and he had all this experience, and then became very vulgar. But he interviewed so well. So it's just you can't.
It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
Do you put any? Well, I know depends on your clients, your residents, but. Do you attempt? Do you have community building events or anything like that?
Bingo night?
We start bingo
When's bingo night?
Wednesday.
No kidding.
Yep, we're bringing it back starting
Is that
Wednesday.
5
night.
I want to do
Five-
bingo night.
It's 5:30. Come on over.
Heck yeah, I love bingo.
Yeah.
So
We have prizes.
nights,
I would come play bingo
And then
night.
we do, like 4th of July, we had a huge
Barbecue.
barbecue.
cookout.
Thanksgiving, we make a
Thanksgiving
big Thanksgiving
meal.
dinner.
Nice.
The staff like to try to be competitive with the goodies and the turkeys.
Candy bowl's always
Yeah.
full.
Food shared, they come to the property, they do their mobile pantry and their
Oh,
senior
really?
commodities.
Okay, great.
We also have Salvation Army come once a week, unless the bread is low, but they'll come bring us a load of bread and goodies.
Mhm.
So it's very, very much, there's a lot of community. We have a common area in the lobby where we have quite a few of our regular people, you know, some elderlies that just, they'll sit out there and mingle. They all get along with each other and have a great time. We have a dog park out back. You know, it's just,
We have a pool table,
pool table, foosball,
shuffleboard.
and nobody uses that.
Like a
Collecting
tabletop
dust.
shuffleboard?
Yeah, it's collecting dust.
We can't find the shuffles.
Nope.
So something to just kind of think about is you're walking into somebody's apartment and really looking for some of these identifiers, and because we want to help people, right? And you're going to find people that get housed and don't have access to food, and so if you see somebody who doesn't have any food in there, they don't have anything in there, how can we help and where can we point them to? Because just because they got in, there's probably a lot more things that they need, and that can be IDs, that can be insurance, that can be access to food, it can be access
Meals
to
on
clothing,
Wheels,
it can be, and so we want to kind of next step them into sustainability in their lives, and if the more you can kind of help them with, generally speaking, the more successful they are in sustaining and housing.
And you guys are all wired in with our local support.
So food
That's
share.
what I do.
Indian Health Care Alliance and Peer Review
So like with
and
Red, we have
mental health and
Yeah.
our place and you've got that. I refer people all the time. We had a guy the other day, it's like foot was like swollen up like this big. Oh, I got to get it. You need to go to Peer Review now.
Yeah.
You know, and my tooth hurts. Go have it pulled out.
Oh, I'm gonna pull it out with a pair of pliers.
We've got a gal that's had some
you're
mental
not
health
listening.
issues.
What
We
are
gotta make
you
sure
going
she gets
to?
down to some mental health and stays in touch with people.
Well, that's good. That's one thing we'll include is certainly a list of services.
And we have bulletin
An
boards
ability.
too that we have. People
We
will
post
ask us
stuff all
if they
the
can
time.
post stuff, and
We're supposed to have Charles come in again.
Heidi
That'd be
has
cool.
a project.
Milk, we
Ability
really
to
look
attend. Who
good.
does?
Heidi,
And if you
she's
you ever
got
wanted us to
some
come in on a
resource
night and just
stuff.
educate or talk about something, like I'd be
You could.
happy to.
that would be a good idea.
Any?
Talk about the importance of having
Yeah,
a doctor.
HR.
Talk about the importance of whatever it might be.
Last thoughts. As you think about a group of volunteers that could help folks, how do you see this being helpful?
Well, teaching people how to live normal lives and be successful.
Yeah.
It's not going to be an easy task to some. I mean, it is to some, but it's not to others.
Okay.
So it's just it'll be very helpful to us as managers to be able to see people be successful versus having to take steps and
But I think
I
it's
don't
also
like evicting
important for them
people.
to know that they don't have anything to be ashamed of. That they got there, but they're working themselves out, and that they should be proud of that they're working themselves towards some place to live.
I'll
That
say it a
it's
lot.
nothing to be ashamed of.
I am so
Your
proud of you.
landlord is here to help you. Your maintenance man is here to help you.
Yep.
These are important relationships.
These people want you to be
They
successful.
want you to be here.
Well, part of hoarding and part of not showering and not throwing the trash is part of mental health. Trauma, big time.
So I have one specific tenant right now. She used to, when she first got moved in, she had somebody with her from, I think, the Center of Mental Health. She came in and she signed herself off and said, I no longer want your services. After she did this, she now is not as great of a tenant as she used to be. She has very poor hygiene. The apartment's not being kept clean. She lost her job. She's not, she got a new job, but she's still got very, very poor hygiene. Me as the manager, I don't know where it's appropriate to step in and say, hey, you need to take a shower.
I have a hard time with that.
But we don't even want this person to step in the office. It's that bad. But it's so hard to approach it because you're not trying to be disrespectful to a person, but you become accustomed to your own stench. I mean, they do. I mean, you're living in it 24/7.
Yeah.
It's not a bother to yourself, but to other people, it's a bother to the entire side of the hallway.
Those are tough conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's,
Yeah.
we see that with the people who've had that street trauma, food insecurity.
Yep.
We have one of the bread guys comes. The bread guys, Good Sam, sends up a truckload of bread every other week, and there's a couple of folks who, if there's 40 loaves of bread out, they will take as many loaves of bread as they can carry.
Not that they
And
need
the bread
it,
guy
they
will
just
come to
think
us
they
and be
do.
like, "Are you gonna let that guy take over?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, but
And
Yeah.
again, we have to slow down. Like, okay, how many loaves of bread can you eat this week?
Mm-hmm.
Well, why don't we take 4 that we really like? Do you like whole wheat, thin, organic, no gluten free,
Yes, I do.
no sodium?
Yeah.
No, you don't, do you? No one does.
I want to respect people's time. I know you
Yep.
gotta go. Last thoughts, Mark, on how this can be successful.
Ooh, I think, I mean, I don't know. I think just the willingness to engage, like, how do we know what we're getting into? And so, how do you be successful? Trial and error. And so it's learning as you go, and growing as you go, and then we'll see what happens. I can't really give you good advice on that. I don't know.